definitely has 100% of the information. He is having a lot of fun and helping a lot of people. This gentleman has his PhD in finance and economics, and he is here tonight for your RX for Forex with a talk with the finance doctor. So it brings me great pleasure to turn this call over to none other than Dr. Craig Bythewood. Dr. Bythewood, are you on the call?
Yes, I am, Ms. Dyer. Thank you very much for your introduction. I hope everyone is doing fine tonight. I'd like to welcome you to our continuation of our power-packed Thursday night calls. Thank you for participating fully in this training. As always, very good comments, very good questions, very good participation. Even those of you that did not unmute, I felt your energy. I could tell that you were all in. And I would just like to thank everyone for attending, for caring enough about your life, caring enough about your family, caring enough about your future, to dial into a Thursday night and take some action that can benefit you. You know, I often say that the African proverb is, how does an ant eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And that is a good way for us to kind of relax through our processes and understand that if we just take one bite at a time, eventually we'll get to our goal. I was particularly moved by Mr. Buckley's comments because he stated his appreciation, which is always a beautiful thing, and he did it in terms of something being different about tonight. And I'm adding to his perspective that it's less about tonight and more about the fact that he is at a certain point in his process. And whatever it is that we're doing, learning a new skill, dating someone new, purchasing something for the first time, building something, fixing something, training a dog, training a child, potty training, whatever we're doing, there's a process. And there's a certain point where it clicks. There's a certain point where you get over the hump. And that's really what Mr. Buckley was expressing. Because one thing I really like about Mr. Buckley is that he's always all in. He's always engaged. He's always asking questions. And one of the things that I do professionally is, as a professor, as an academician, as a person who's had the blessing of being able to look at business from three different perspectives. One, as a professor. Two, as a consultant. Three, as an individual who's actually in an organization working. Those three perspectives allow me to really look at learning curves and look at the way in which people process information, because I'm literally looking at companies and processes from three different vantage points, and I notice the way in which people develop. So one of the things I've noticed about Mr. Buckley's questions, and understand this is not about Mr. Buckley, this is about humans. He's just giving me an example to express a thought about humans. If I take his tone and his inflection in his first question, and I look at the development up until now, literally each question he asked, his shoulders got a little bit looser. And each question he asked, his tone and inflection got a little bit more relaxed. And this is a process. It's not something you're just going to see. You know how you're with a child and then you're with them in a given summer, then you go out of town or you go around family and the family says, oh man, they got so tall. And you don't realize it because you were with them every day. Well, I oftentimes look at people's growth because, again, I do this for a living and I find it fascinating. So I have watched Mr. Buckley grow in terms of the authority in which he asks questions. And I'll give you a perfect example to prove that what I'm saying is accurate. I noticed that whenever Mr. Buckley would ask a question in the beginning, he would say, am I wrong? I may be wrong, I'm probably wrong, but then it started shifting. And he started saying, am I correct or am I wrong? And eventually, when he's on these calls, he'll start saying, am I correct? That's a process that he went through from am I wrong to am I correct or am I wrong to eventually am I correct? And that's not something he recognizes because he's with himself every day. But I just saw him last summer and now I'm seeing him again this summer and I can see the growth. So what I'm really saying to you, again, is not about Mr. Buckley. Thank you, Mr. Buckley, for allowing me to have this example. It's about each one of us taking a deep breath and just recognizing that as we go through our process, we'll get there. There's only one way for you not to get there, and that's to stop. If you keep engaging in the IML Academy, if you follow my simple philosophy of watch the next video, if you continue to dial into these calls, if you continue to do a little bit each day, you'll put yourself in a position where it'll click. And when it clicks, then you add some more, and then you add some more, and then you add some more. We've been in this company for over a year. And some of you have only been in it for a few weeks, for a few months. So just understand, if you keep going, if you just eat one bite at a time, you will get there. So thank you, Mr. Buckley, for one, getting to that point by continuing to dial in, and two, expressing your thanks and appreciation, which allowed me to pick up on it and make this point, which I promise you is blessing other people. There's someone, Mr. Buckley, who's listening to me right now with a muted mic, and the words that I'm saying are resonating with them. And there's even someone right now who is taking my words and recognizing that it fits with something outside of trading. There's a life issue, there's a life topic that they can apply to this. So this topic, this point is only being made because you thought enough of this process, Mr. Buckley, to show your appreciation. You know, oftentimes people talk about the comments that are made underneath a given post or a given picture or whatever. I spent a lot of time with my three daughters the last few weeks when we went to Kentucky for a basketball tournament. We went to Atlanta for a basketball tournament. And as I'm listening to them speak, one of the components of social life in the teenage world, especially in the feminine persuasion, is to put a lot of weight onto how people respond to their pictures, respond to their posts. There are even times when sometimes self-esteem is affected by how people view their posts. I got 12 likes. She didn't even like me. She just said K instead of OK. The nuances are that big. So my objective is not to judge this generation because they are very technological and they express themselves through technology and devices where we express ourselves differently. My point is simply that when people are so quick to talk about what they don't like, people are so quick to check someone, to criticize, to make a comment, to do a comment that is going to check someone or put them in place or express what they didn't like. When someone takes the time to say, hey, thank you, I appreciated that. That really makes me feel good. That's a beautiful thing. And just to reinforce that point, I trained my children the way I was trained. And I was always trained that when someone gives you a gift, you write out a personal thank you. So when my daughter, my oldest daughter, graduated from high school a couple of months ago, all those people who gave her any type of money, whether it was $1 or $500, and it did go from that range, she wrote out handwritten notes and she sent them to people. And the response that she got from people was so overwhelming. And it wasn't overwhelming because what she did was a beautiful thing. It was overwhelming because as a society, we've gotten away from that. And there were people just sending pictures and like, oh my God, and oh my God, and oh my God. And all she was doing was just doing what I was taught to do. So just something that we passed on. And my point is simply this: thankfulness, appreciation is an energy. And it's an energy that has power. So understand that if this point spoke to you, if this point is relevant to you, this point is a reminder of the way in which you could shift some things in your life right now, because a more balanced person is a better trader. Someone that feels good in their emotional state will see patterns better, will be able to feel confident about their trades. So just know that it is that thankful appreciative energy which allowed this point to be made. So again, I thank you, Ms. Dyer, for providing your ever vigilant guidance. And I thank you, Mr. Buckley, for continuing to dial in and getting to that point of getting over the hump. And I appreciate you showing your appreciation. As always, these calls are about foreign exchange trading. But these calls are also about us understanding that the foreign exchange market is a slice of the economic pie. And we want to be able to speak to, have an awareness of, apply, understand, and take action steps with all slices of the economic pie. So I say this every call on purpose. Personal finance is the only area of our society where the people who provide information to us are the very people who sell the product. So there is a huge value in coming to these calls, unmuting that mic, and asking questions that can help economically empower your life by speaking to someone who's just like you, but just happens to have been exposed to the nuances of the personal financial world for 25 years. Someone who's been passionate about helping people, so aggressively studies it so that I can answer questions. So since I am not assigned or tied to a product, I can give you objective advice that you can use to translate into action steps in your household right away. So with that in mind, questions, comments, testimonies, poems, soliloquies, monographs, monologues. So, given that there are no questions, I have an agenda for tonight.
Mr. Bythewood.
Yes, Mr. Buckley, what can I do for you?
I have a question. One of the things is that in working in this market, in the Forex market, and making sure that we do, because one of the things I learned over the last couple of weeks is that it's always good to find ways of getting information, knowledge that builds on the knowledge base that we're getting. So one of the things that I've been really looking at, I started reading the books that we're supposed to be reading, but at the same time, there's a knowledge base that's out there. Even though we're dealing with the knowledge base that's here, there's a knowledge base that's out there that we need to somehow connect to. Is there a particular place or places we should go in order to help build on our knowledge base that we're getting all this information from? Because I'm trying to collapse time frames to make it shorter, quicker, so that I can be in profit. And at the same time, there's a lot of information coming at me. And I know it's a process, but At the same time, I want kind of like the information to come at me quickly so that I can kind of thrash it out and be able to ask the proper questions. That'll make it more real to me.
So I appreciate the question. And I really think that the answer to your question is that the IML Academy has everything that we need to be able to get to the point where we can master this information. And having been in this company for over a year, one thing I know about the IML Academy is that as powerful and as productive as it is as an educational platform, it changes and it shifts with the current trends. So when you look at the IML Academy next year, it'll be different. Why will it be different? Because 2020 will be different. So the shortcut isn't in finding some external information beyond the academy. The shortcut is to put your mind in a balanced spiritual state so that the information that comes to you can come to you in a way where it's processed better. And I'll give you a quick example. About 2 weeks ago, I walked into one of my players' hotel room in Kentucky, and this particular player is taking a summer school class. So they were laid on the bed with the book studying. They were flat on the bed studying. So I explained to this player, we process information with something called a neuron. And a neuron is a thing in your brain. It's an actual cell in your brain that looks like this. And at the top of the neuron, there's a receptor. And that receptor processes information. So the information comes down from your brain, it hits the neuron, and then it goes into the neuron. That's how you receive and process information. So I explained to her that when you're reclining, when you're laying down, the neuron is laying down in the same state that you are. If you're standing up, your neuron's here. If you're laying down, your neuron's here. So now the information still comes from the top, but the receptor's over here. So when it hits the neuron, it's not directly going into the receptor. So what happens is that you don't receive all the information. So I said to her, I've never in my life been around you when you were studying in a bed. But let me ask you this. What happens every time you study in bed? She thought about it. She said, I fall asleep. And I said, what happens to the information that you're reading while you're laying there? I always have to read it again. Exactly. So I'd say that, Mr. Buckley, because we need to, instead of finding other things to read and instead of finding other information, we have everything we need. What we need to find is a way to position ourselves where our bodies and our spirits and our emotions are so in tune that are at such a high vibration that we'll be able to receive the information and only have to listen to it once instead of 3 times. There are people on this call that have said to me, including myself, I had to listen to a video 3 or 4 times. And that's okay, because we listen to it until we understand it. What I'm saying is that the more balanced we are, the more peaceful we are, the more relaxed we are, the better position we are in to be able to receive the video. So I'm not changing my vote, Mr. Buckley, just because you asked this good question. I say every call, or I say most calls, the key to being successful in this game is to watch the next video. Watch the next video. And then when you finish that, watch the next video. So I dare you to come to me having watched all the videos and then say, Dr. B, is there somewhere else we should go? When you get to that point, then I'll accept pointing out elsewhere. You literally, as a business partner in International Markets Live, you have everything that you need to be successful. and trying to find a shortcut could put you in a position where you may miss some information. You may miss some layers of understanding that can help you to be in a better position to be in profit. So don't look elsewhere. Look at what you have right now, but just put your mindset in the right place. Now, whether you realize this or not, Mr. Buckley, you totally set me up for what I want to say. But before I do that, do you have a follow-up question to my answer to your question?
You hit it right on the head, and I'm glad you said, because I'm not looking for a shortcut, but at the same time, I just wanted to put it out there that it's something I was thinking about, because I'm trying to collapse time frames and learn everything faster. And you just have to follow the process and follow the rules. And one of the things I've been doing for myself is I've been listening over and over again to the information that's on the website. I've been listening over and over again, and I'm taking time, especially in areas that I know I'm weak, to listen to it 3-4 times to make it crystallize in my brain, so that when I do ask the question, it makes better sense in terms of what I'm doing.
I appreciate that. That's a very good strategy. So the beauty of Mr. Buckley's question to me is that it reflects a goal that we all have. And oftentimes when we put ourselves in a position where we want to get somewhere faster, we tighten our shoulders. And what happens when our shoulders get tight is oftentimes we push ourselves away from the solution and we don't realize it. So I heard Ms. Dyer say this. She said, don't trade against the trend. And whether she realized that or not, there's a lot of power in that statement. Don't trade against the trend, because that isn't necessarily something to be applied in the foreign exchange market. That's something that we can look at for life. Don't trade against the trend. Now, I happen to be a child of hip hop. I feel like I grew up with hip hop. I've actually taught hip hop classes. I used to teach a class called The Economic Impact of Hip Hop on Society. I taught it for 12 years. So I consider myself to be an academician in the world of hip hop. So I said all that to say this. As a person that loves music, my favorite part of the music industry is the remix. Because you have something that's already good, but then you make it gooder. I said that on purpose. You make it gooder because you take the good song, because they don't remix bad songs. They take the good song and they add stuff to it, and now you got the remix, and you just bam. And it's funny, whenever people go back in time and play the old song, they always play the remix. So the remix makes the good gooder. So it was a good point when Ms. Dyer said, don't trade against the trend. But I'm going to remix it. I'm going to remix that statement, because in reality, there's a lesson in the way in which she said the statement. Don't trade against the trend. So I'm going to remix it, chicka, 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 to trade with the trend. Trade with the trend. Don't trade against the trend. Trade against the trend. There are spiritual avatars who say that when you use the word not, the universe does not hear the word not. It only hears whatever it is that you're focusing on. For example, what does a dog do when it senses that you're scared of it? It growls at you or it bites you, because the fear is what is bringing the dog to you. So in reality, the way energy works is that whatever we fear, whatever we push against, we actually bring it into our experience. There is a philosophy, that's not the right word. There is a group of individuals who study quantum physics. And quantum physics studies the basic building blocks of our world. So at the smallest, most microscopic level, quantum physicists study the way the world works from its infrastructure. And what quantum physics is for is by studying the way it works on the smallest level, when you build and add things to it, you recognize that that's the way it works. Because obviously, in order for anything to get big, it has to have be small first, and then be added upon it. So if you study quantum physics, you're studying the basic building blocks of our world, of energy, of the way it works. And one of the things that quantum physicists discovered 30 years ago was that they were looking at a microscope, and they were studying a particular organism. So when they went to study the organism, they looked at it in the microscope, and then they walked away. Then they went to look at it in the microscope, and there it was, and then they walked away. So somebody got the bright idea to keep filming the microscope after they walked away. And what they discovered was that when they went to the microscope to look at the actual item, it was there. But when they went away and they weren't looking at it, it wasn't there. So the mechanism, the microorganism only appeared when the scientists looked for it. What are you saying, finance doctor? I'm saying whatever we look at, whatever we focus on, whatever we give energy to, that's what appears. So if we give energy to a fear, it appears. If we give energy to something that we don't want, it appears. There's an old saying, what you resist will persist. When you try to push against it, it actually happens. So I know that if you just for a second get out of your realism, but it's true type of mentality and just think about what I'm saying, you can identify several times in your life where you kept saying, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, and it happened. But you have that same power when you say, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, I want this to happen. So we have to be very careful about the power of this statement. Trade with the trend. Trade with the trend. This is not about foreign exchange. This is about putting ourselves in a position where we can just flow through the river of life. When something happens that we don't like, and we say, I don't like that, you just gave it energy. And guess what? It keeps happening. What do we do when we're watching television and there's a channel or a show that we don't watch, that we don't like? Do we sit there and complain about the show and say, you're a bad show, get off of my TV, I don't like the way you are, show, you're not entertaining me? That's not what we do. What do? We change the channel. That's the way life works. If there's something that isn't going right, if there's something that causes your shoulders to get tight, the more you look at it, the more it's in your perspective, the more it appears. You don't have to listen to me. Just look at your life. Just put a pause button and just think about everything that's happened over your life and just think about the accuracy of this. Those things that you always say you don't want to happen always happen. Those things that you always say you want to happen are going to happen. So trade with the trend means that we need to be responsible for understanding that our life is just like a market. As we begin to change directions on something that we want, there's a pullback. There's resistance. There's a situation where we, like I did with the example of the stick shift car in San Francisco, we rock back before we go forward, just like the market. When you're doing something new, when you're doing something that is a change in paradigm, there's always resistance first. But what we do sometimes is we say, I don't want the resistance, stop the resistance. I want this to stop. When in reality, think about it like this. Let me tell you how much God loves us. When we make a decision to do something big, when we make a decision to do something that's going to change the paradigm for us, God sends all of the things in our perspective that are in the way of getting to that goal. And we think it's an issue. We think it's a problem. We think it's barriers and obstacles. No, it's not. It's just showing you what you have to do in order to get to that goal. So when you recognize that, instead of having a problem with it, instead of having an issue with it, instead of complaining about it, instead of continuing to tell the story, you just go with the trend. You just trade with the trend. So I would like Ms. Dyer to please help me. Typing and talking are two things that I have to do separately. So I'd like to say something, Ms. Dyer, and I'd like for you to please type it in the chat. I'd like for you to type 4 words for me. First, taking. Capital T-A-K-I-N-G. Taking. The next word, responsibility. Capital R-E, don't make me spell responsibility. I'm hoping you can. Responsibility. The third word is about. The fourth word is divine. Capital D-I-V-I-N-E. And the last word is energy. Taking responsibility about divine energy. How many of us have picked up on the fact that that spells trade? Trade with the trend. This foreign exchange market is a microcosm for our life. We have support forces that help us to rise up. We get the resistance, and then we change directions into an incline. Taking responsibility about divine energy, trade. Trade with the trend. I always talk about the collective consciousness. And we need to understand that we're in these rectangles, we're in these calls, we want to do this because we've got excess energy. Remember from science in middle school? There was potential energy and kinetic energy. And potential energy was that energy that was just waiting on us to do something. So we've been carrying this potential energy all our lives. And here we are with IML and the Be Your Own Bank movement. And now we have the opportunity to take this energy and give it direction. Trade, taking responsibility about divine energy with the trend. Trend. T-R-E-N-D. Let's take the potential energy that we've been carrying all of our lives and let's bless our families, our communities, our businesses, our business partners, our Be Your Own Bank movement, and let's give this energy direction. Trend. Ms. Dyer, can you type these 5 words for me? Together. Realize energy needs direction. Trend. Trade with the trend. Taking responsibility about divine energy with the trend. Together, realize that energy needs direction. So Mr. Buckley's question was only about one thing and one thing only. I want to make a profit. So we relax. We take responsibility about being in the right divine energy, and we hit the trend because together we realize that energy needs direction. Trade with the trend. You give energy direction by doing the same thing that those quantum physicists did with those microscopes. When they looked for a particular mechanism, it was there. So what microorganism are you looking for? Mr. Buckley is looking to be able to be profitable. But we have to do it in a relaxed, with the trend energy. You wouldn't go to a movie and get mad in the middle of the movie because you don't know how it's going to end. You'd sit there and you'd let it play out. Sometimes we need to walk in that energy of just relaxing, going with the trend, taking responsibility about divine energy. Together, realize the energy needs direction. Trade with the trend. And when we do that, we'll always be in the right mindset. We'll always be in the right place. We'll always be in the right energy to answer all the questions, to watch all the videos, and to put ourselves in a position of profit, not only in the foreign exchange market, but in every part of our life. Trade with the trend. Thank you. I will now pass this call back over to our host and our hostess.
Wow. Dr. Bythewood, that was a powerful call. I like that. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why this is a power pack evening. This is why we do this. This is why the BYOB calls. This is why the BYOB movement is exactly what it is. It's set up for you to think like a bank, act like a bank, so you can be your own bank. It is set up for you to have the ultimate success. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you are creating distribution centers, ATMs, it is time for you to register. November the 2nd, it is time for you to register. It will be the Leadership and Development Conference. The training will be in Tampa, Florida. You want to get registered. You want to make sure you are pre-registered this time. Pre-registered. Take advantage of the discounted price. You want to make sure you register early. Let's do that. BYOBchallenge.net. That's what you want to make sure. And I'm misspelling. I'm trying to type it in there. Get registered. You want to make sure you go to this site and get registered. It is in the chat right now. So, as we said, ladies and gentlemen, if you are building those distribution centers and ATMs on Sunday nights at 8 p.m., we have our team training call, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that being said, you all have a wonderful and blessed evening, and this will officially conclude our call.